Today's tutorial is for the last in my series in January for Frugal Fridays. Now this is going to end my no spend month in January. A lot of people said they really liked me doing the free patterns on Friday, so I am going to continue them. So I do plan on every Friday just coming out with a new free pattern. If I run out of patterns or if something comes up and I miss a Friday, I'll try to get back on it as soon as possible, but my intention is to not skip a Friday. I did not make it through the month without spending money. I did spend a couple things on sewing supplies. So I'm just going to put that number up on the screen in case other things come up before this video releases. So the tutorial for today is for the Iris Mini Crossbody. This is from the designer A Quaint Stitch. I actually have a full tutorial on this pattern on my channel already. I'm going to put a link to it in my description. For this one, I'm going to sew everything up, but I'm going to make just a few changes. Might go through things a little bit quicker. I am using vinyl for my materials today. I rarely sew an all vinyl bag, but just thought this one would be fun to do it. But you could definitely use all cotton woven, cotton canvas, waterproof, whatever you want to use for the substrate for this bag. Currently, I have nothing on the exterior pieces. On my cotton woven pieces for the lining, I just have a layer of SF101. I may leave it at that. I will let you know once I sew up the front and back, then we will decide then. My vinyl is from Jane R. Edwards. My other prints I think are just from my local quilt shop. My cotton woven prints, I don't know. They were on my shelf, so I'm not really for sure. This bag is not hardware heavy. I'm going to be adding a zipper pocket to the lining. That's even optional. You don't have to do that, but that is going to be a zipper pocket there, so a little bit of hardware. The flap has a snap on it. I'm using this unique snap. I've not used one of these before. This is from Altalia Fiber Arts. I bought it a while back and I've been waiting to find something to try it on, so I'm going to try it today on this. I have ribbons from Altalia Fiber Arts as well. And then I do have 2 3/4 of an inch D-rings. I'm going to be honest with you. I did not have 3/4 of an inch in this black or gunmetal. I took antique brass and then I just colored them with a Sharpie. I'm still in the middle of this no spend and I didn't want to purchase anything. I could have switched and used 1-inch hardware for the connectors, but I just felt like with this size bag it wouldn't look as good. Because I did that, that means I would not sell this bag. I will keep it for myself or gift it. I have not cut out my strap anchors yet. So what the designer tells you to do is take your vinyl. If you're doing the raw edge version, she does have an option for a fabric strap anchor. What she tells you to do is to glue the vinyl together and then cut out your 2 pieces after it's glued together. So I will trace around here, then I'll cut this out. You can also see on this pattern piece, she gives you 2 marks for your rivet placement. I will go ahead after I cut this out, transfer those marks on there and use my hole punch to punch holes in those 2 marks. Let's go over the other pieces we have. So for your front piece, you're going to have your bottom piece and then you will have 2 side pieces. They will need to be cut mirrored so you can see there's a slope on the outside. The inside will be this straight piece. And then we're also going to have a center piece. This is what's going to make up our front. So we're going to sew the sides on first and then we'll sew on the bottom. Very simple, but I love the way this looks when it comes together because we can do some really nice top stitching on here. We have our flap, 1 exterior piece, and then I have 1 lining piece. Because I'm using that unique magnetic snap, mine will go here at the bottom. The pattern piece actually has you to have a magnetic snap here in the middle. But if you have just a regular snap, you don't have to do the version I'm doing. A regular snap will be just fine on this. For the back, we will have a bottom piece, just like our front. It's the same pattern piece. Then we will have a center piece, and then we will have a top piece. We will sandwich that flap in between this top and this center piece here to attach it to the bag. That will be the back pieces. Next, we have our interior. We just have 2 of this piece for the inside, and then I have 1 pocket lining piece. This pattern comes together really quick. The first time I sewed it, I couldn't believe that it was a free pattern because it came together quick. It was really pretty and unique, and it's just a fun sew. I highly suggest this pattern. This is one, I think this is probably the 4th one I've made of this, and every time I love it just the same. You can get this pattern for free. I'm going to put the link in my description. So here's the pieces. Let's go ahead and get started sewing up this pattern. One thing that makes this pattern so quick is that you can do a lot of prep work and then just sit and sew it all at once. So let's go through the pieces that you can prep kind of ahead of time so that when you sit down at the machine, you can just sew them all at once. Just as a side note, I do have like more of a slower going video if this feels a little too confusing for you. So I take that center piece from the front, and then I just clip the 2 side pieces onto the side. If you remember, the side pieces have to be mirrored. So you're not sewing along that angled side, you're matching them on the straight side, and you're going to sew down this straight side and this straight side. You'll use the seam allowance given in the pattern for this. Take that back middle piece and just place it right sides together with the back bottom piece. You can see you have your cutout corners here. We're not sewing that. That's going to be at the main bottom for those boxed corners. We are going to sew along this straight edge. If you're confused about which part of this back middle, it's the wider piece. It's the part that matches it perfectly. If you would clip this shorter side, it wouldn't match up, so that would let you know. So we'll sew across this straight edge too. Go ahead and grab your flap, and if you need to add any magnets or snaps to yours, do that ahead of time. I don't on mine. So I clipped the exterior and the lining right sides together. I will start sewing here at the top, and I will sew down this side along the curve and the bottom, and then back up that other side. Definitely sew in these angles too. We will leave this top completely open, and that's how we'll turn this flap right sides out, and then this will be hidden in that seam that we were talking about earlier. If you're doing the raw edge connector version, go ahead and cut that out, and then we're just going to top stitch around these 2 pieces. You can see I did go ahead and poke out the holes with my hole puncher. If you're doing the fabric version, you'll just have to follow the pattern steps for that. And then the last thing I have prepped is this lining piece. The way you do this is you take the lining pocket piece, fold it in half. I went ahead and drew a line there so you could see it. That is the center line. After you find that center, you are going to use the pattern measurements as to how far down you come to draw that box for your zipper pocket. But it starts with the measurement at the center. Also, when you place this lining pocket piece on the lining, you measure from the top down to that center line. So it tells you how far this center line should be from the top. Once you have it placed properly, and of course it's centered, once you have it placed properly, then you just sew on that box to start the zipper pocket process. If you want to birth this bag through your zipper pocket opening, you will not close it. I am choosing to do a drop-in lining for this bag, and so I'm going to be closing my zipper pocket. A drop-in lining is my preferred way to close a bag, to finish a bag, however you want to call it, if I have the option. But let's go ahead and sew up all these pieces all at once. Let's go over everything I sewed. Here is that lining zipper pocket attached to the main lining piece. I want to go ahead and do the next steps on it by cutting in the middle of that box and then going down to one end and then angling out to each corner, getting as close to those stitches as I possibly can. Do the same thing on the other side. So now I'll just push this lining piece through, but I will have to go over the iron and press everything open. So I'll do that off camera. Here is that flap, here's the lining piece, here is that exterior piece. I'm going to take my pinking shears and I'm going to trim up all around here, and then I'm going to turn this right sides out and probably give it a press too. Yes, I know this is vinyl, but I can press from the lining side to kind of help that vinyl lay flat. If my vinyl is still like kind of being poofy and not laying flat, I will clip it just to let it kind of settle down, but then I'll come back and show you how we're going to top stitch around here and even baste that top close. For this back middle and back bottom piece, I am going to butterfly this seam. I am butterflying all these seams and I'm going to top stitch down both sides. Yes, this is going to add some extra time to your sewing, but I feel like it just looks so good. If you have one of those rollers, and if you're using vinyl, this is a great place to use a seam roller. I don't, so I'm just going to finger press, and then I'm going to go in here and top stitch just 1/8 of an inch away from each side of that seam. I'll use my fingers to kind of make for sure I'm keeping that seam open and that I am keeping it butterflied. This is how the back piece looks so far. Now I can't do anything else until I'm ready to add the flap. So I'm going to set this aside and we'll wait till we do some more prep work on the flap and then we'll put it here. On my connectors, I top stitched around both of these. I'll need to trim up my threads. We will not use this until the very last step of the bag. Now here is that center middle piece for the front and the side pieces. I'm going to do that same thing with butterflying these seams and top stitching down both sides. I'll do that off camera since you just saw me do it on the back piece, but it's the same concept. You flatten that seam over and then you sew down both sides of this seam. So I'll do those steps off camera, and when I come back we'll look at everything I did and what we're doing next. Here is how my top front looks. Only thing I need to do now to this is to add that bottom piece. I will take that bottom piece and I will just place it right sides together along that straight edge, and I will sew it and then butterfly those seams exactly like I did on the back piece. So I will do those steps off camera, and then that will have the front piece finished. For the flap, I went ahead and sewed it right sides together, used my pinking shears to trim, and then I turned it right sides out. I do have some clips compressing that just a little bit, but I'm going to top stitch all around here, and then I did decide to add a tag. Since I already have this turned, I'm going to be sewing this tag on, and you will see the stitches from the lining side. If that bothers you and you want to add a tag, make sure you do it before you attach the two pieces. I also have the zipper box pressed open here on this lining. I'm going to take my zipper tape, have my pull going to the left, and I'm going to center my teeth inside that box, and I will top stitch all around the box to attach the zipper to the lining. So here's my flap. It's ready to be attached to the back, so I'm going to do that in just a minute. Here is that zipper pocket attached. Let's flip this over and let's go ahead and pull that lining down. And then, like I said, if you are turning through this pocket, leave the bottom open, but I'm going to sew mine completely shut because I'm doing a drop-in lining. My zipper pocket's complete, so that means the lining is done because this is the only pocket I'm adding to the lining. You could add a zipper pocket on the other side of the lining or even a slip pocket. Now I want to add this flap to the back side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flap and I'm going to place it right sides down, because whenever it flips, I want to be looking at the right side. So this part will need to flip over to the front, and so that's the way we need it to go. We're going to center it on this piece and just baste that into place. I think I'm going to slip a woven label in here and see how that looks. It may or may not look okay, but I'm just going to try and see. So I don't want it all the way to the end because I guess it would be caught in the seam allowance, but I don't want it perfectly in the middle. I want it kind of to the side. So I'm going to stick it here and just baste it into place as well. So go ahead and grab out this top piece for your back. And if you place it the way it's supposed to go, you can see that one side is wider than the other. The part you're sewing with this bottom piece is the wider spot. So go ahead and flip it down and then clip this into place, and we're going to sew this right sides together with that bottom piece using that full seam allowance. This is not a basting stitch at this point. So now what I want to do is I want to flip this top up, but I also want to flip the flap up too, so that seam goes down, but I'm going to top stitch my tag down because I want it to be laying flat. So I'll start on this side, pushing that seam down and going 1/8 of an inch away. When you come to the flap, make sure that seam is down. You should feel it, and kind of press everything so that it's laying flatly. I am seriously sweating that I put that too far up. Total rookie mistake. I should have thought that that would definitely need to go lower. Can I switch it? I could, but I would leave holes in the vinyl. Why I don't typically use vinyl. We'll look and see, and then we'll make our choice towards the end once we figure everything out, but could be a problem there. So what I need to do now, though, is I need to attach that magnet. So the way this magnet looks is that it has screws in there, so I'm thinking I am going to use the screws to attach it, which I've done in several magnets before, so I know how that goes. So we have an opening here. Looks like we can just slip that in. I got to unscrew my screw, so let's go ahead and do that. So I unscrewed the magnets. Okay, so that separates once you unscrew it, and then this part is going to go here at the bottom. So your circle will be going up, and then this part will go on the back. So I'll have to mark the screw placements, have everything centered of course, and then attach it like this. So you can see the screws will go through there. Let's go ahead and add that magnet piece so I don't forget that. We're going to add the male portion. I want the thinner piece to go through here. So there's that magnet. Now this will be against the wrong side of the lining, so you won't see this. This is the part you will see. So I'm going to make for sure that I place this exactly the way it's supposed to go, have it centered, and I'm going to screw that in. So I'll go off camera and get my center marks, make the marks for the screws, punch the holes there, and then screw it in. I'll come back and we'll look at that, and I'll show you everything, but we're really ready to start putting everything together. Let's keep our fingers crossed that this doesn't look too horribly bad. There's a chance it'll be okay. At this point, you should have 2 exterior pieces, a front and a back, and 2 lining pieces, a front and a back. What you're going to do with the exteriors is you'll take them and put them right sides together. You're going to sew down the sides, across the bottom, and then box the corners. You're going to do the same thing for the lining pieces. I'm going to use this seam allowance given in the pattern to sew down the sides and the bottom and to box the corners. I will go ahead and sew everything, but then I'll come back to show you how to box the corners in case this is a step you haven't done before in sewing, just so you can see it done one more time. So to box the corner, I always just stick my hand inside to get a really good opening there. And then I pull everything flat. I really want to have that open nicely. So I'll kind of see which way the seam on the bottom wants to go. And then just line up those seams and lay them flat. I'm going to add a clip here. I'll do the same thing to the other side, and then I'll just sew across. Make sure it's flat and you're sewing across it flat. Even if it's a little crooked here, you still want to sew across flat and just trim everything up. I will box both corners on the lining piece and the exterior. You can see on the top of this exterior piece, I drew a line. That's where I'm going to fold down this raw edge too, since I'm doing a drop-in lining. I will box the corners and fold down to the line off camera, but I'll come back and show it to you and kind of explain it to you a little bit just to show you how it's working. But I also need to go ahead and add that other side to the magnetic snap. I want to wait until I box the corners and turn everything right sides out, because I'm hoping that I can place it to a place where this will be able to be seen and I won't have to correct that. So let's hope I can get that to work out and this look good. So I'll come back and show you all that. But first, let's box these corners. There is the first one. I will do the second one off camera and then go ahead and do the same steps for the lining. I am so excited with how this is turning out. I was able to put this other part of the magnetic snap low enough to where my tag, I don't think you can see it now because I have all the clips here, but where my tag is just, it's at the top, but it's okay. So it's not bad. I'm leaving it like that. So I have the magnets, I have everything boxed, I have the exterior right sides out, everything's ready to go. You can see I just folded down the raw edge. So like what you want to do when you do a drop-in lining is you want to fold it down the seam allowance, because now you're not using that seam allowance, so you fold it down. So if your seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch, you fold it down 1/4 of an inch. If it's 1/2 an inch, you fold it down 1/2 inch. That's what I do. It's not too big of a deal, but that's just your basic concept, your basic idea of it. I went ahead and sewed the lining and I have it the same way, the edges folded down. I'm going to choose to have my zipper pocket here towards the front just because there's a little extra bulk on the back with that flap, and I feel like it'll be better. Now at this point, when I put this lining in, I'm just dropping it in. If it is too baggy, I can fold it down more so that it fits better. Okay, let's look and see how it's feeling and how everything's looking. Right now, it's looking pretty good. So I think it's going to be fine. So the lining for me, I don't need to adjust. What I do is I match up these side seams first and I just start clipping them together, clipping all the way around. I like to have my lining just a little bit lower than my exterior, just maybe a 1/16 of an inch. So that way, whenever I top stitch all around here, I'm not seeing that lining peeking through. I'm only seeing the exterior. I'm going to come over to this other seam and do this. Now I chose not to add any more interfacing to this exterior piece. I felt like it was good enough for me. Could it have handled a little bit more, like maybe some fleece, Decaville-like? Definitely could have, but I'm not big on really structured bags anyway. I like them to be a little softer than some people. I feel like it's easier to sew and doesn't cause any problems, but you definitely could have, after you sewed the pieces all together and you have your front and back completed, before you attach the front and back exteriors to each other, you definitely could have added a little bit more stabilizer. So now I'm just clipping everything all around. Then I'll do that top stitch all around. I am leaning back and forth between just leaving this a pouch and not adding those connectors. The reasons why is if I don't add those connectors, because if you remember I colored my connectors with the magic marker, I could still sell this bag then. It's just a pouch. But I don't know. I'm torn on it. Let me sew this and then I'm going to look at it and then I will decide. So you could turn this inside out so that you could sew on the exterior for that final row of top stitching, but I'm going to leave it this way. I'm going to start sewing in the back and I'm just going to go really slow. I'm going to watch the seam allowance and try my best to just get a really nice top stitch all around here. So here is how this bag looks. I am still undecided completely if I want to do it as a crossbody or not. Let me show you how it would look if you were going to do it as a crossbody. You would take one of your connectors, slip on your D-ring. You find the crease there, and this center crease, this mark here, this crease here is what will fit directly on this. So you would just slide it in there. You could lift up your flap. It'd be a lot easier. And you'll slip it on. Then you would make the marks for your rivet placement. If you are uncomfortable with going through this seam, if you're like, hey, that will degrade that seam, you could offset this slightly so it's just slightly over to one side. It wouldn't be that noticeable, like, oh, that's crooked. It would not be able to tell. And then you would attach it. I'm leaning towards leaving this as a pouch though. Let's look inside. Look how open that is. We have this gorgeous top stitching on the front. We have the beautiful top stitching on the back. I think if I did this again and wanted to use a snap like this or even a bigger decorative one, definitely take the time to sew your bottoms together first, then butterfly that seam and top stitch on both sides. That would give you a much more stable base because mine's having a tendency to want to tip forward. This pattern is one that would look so good in a solid color cork or vinyl because that top stitching is so nice. Having a big decorative magnetic snap on here would be stunning. I just love this pattern so much. Can't believe it's a free pattern. So it is meant to be a crossbody. You could add your connectors and make it crossbody. I'm leaning towards leaving it as a pouch. I don't know. I think this is what I want. I think I'm going to keep it. I don't know. I could sell it if I don't add those connectors. But gosh, this is so cute. My vinyl is from J&R Edwards. The magnetic snap is from Altelia Fiber Arts. Tag is from Heartwood and Hyde. The woven label here is from Sewing Blurbs. The pattern is from a Quaint Stitch. She does have a Facebook group. I will leave a link to how to get this pattern for free. I'm also going to leave a link for my slower, more in-depth tutorial in my description, as well as the materials. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial today. This is the last one for January, for the No Spin January. I'm going to continue, or at least plan on continuing, these free patterns every Friday for as long as I can, or until we run out of free patterns. So thank you again for watching another one, and I hope you guys have a great day and have the time to sew up a free pattern that you have already, or try this one out. This is a great one. Thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful day.